Well, hello. Hi. Howdy. I am doing the 10-day countdown to my birthday. I'm about to be what they call 55, which is the end of the 55th revolution, the beginning of the 56th revolution around the sun in this here body. And when I was a young lass, I was told I would not live to be 50 in this body, most likely. So I suppose in some ways, every year past that feels like a triumph, an extra triumph. I mean, all the time is a triumph, right? To wake up alive and to feel free enough to live alive, which I don't always, by the way, is a triumph. There's extra little triumphs. I'm all about the extras. None of that is what I wanted to talk about. I actually jotted down a note. Let's see, because I suffer from a thing called performance anxiety, I think is what it would be called. Suffer is a strong word. I have suffered, though, at times. Right now, I'm not suffering from that. I want to talk about the lurch. You know what I'm talking about? When I say the lurch, you ever been left in a lurch? It's a fun word to say, fun word to write too, actually. I was thinking a lot about, this morning I was rambling about the turning away, the lack of response, the diminishing, the lurch, that sense of betrayal that I think many of us experience many times in life. Maybe some, it could just be me. I'm definitely feeling more and more in a lurch. Not just in the last couple of years, not just since the pandemic. It's actually been, like, I can look back and see that it's been longer than that, at least since like 39 is when I really remember being hit with it hard, like this sense that society was no longer considering me worthy of consideration in society, and realizing that a lot of the consideration that I'd felt before really just had to do with my reproductive capacity, or at least that's what it felt like. That's just one story. There's always multiple stories that our brains come up with, right? I think it's important to remember that any story that we tell is just that. It's one story among many potential stories. But I was thinking about that sense that starts with perhaps somebody is turning away or not responding in time or saying something shitty. Even maybe it even starts with an intention to spite. Sometimes, I think more often than not, there's no intention to spite. It's that sense comes from an internal dialogue or an interpretation, or it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. We have a running tally of all these things that happen to us. And so then someone looks a certain way or doesn't respond in a certain way, or does respond, and it triggers like a cascade of our tally and becomes something much larger than it really was in our own story. At least for me, that happens very frequently. And I've done a lot of examining, a lot of calling it out, is why I can speak about it. But so far, speaking to it and about it has not kept it from happening, which is a little bit interesting to me, because I think when I realized like 12 years ago that I was the main cause of my suffering, not just like it's something I had heard before, probably had layers of realization about it, but there was a point, maybe after that point, when I was 39 and I found myself really feeling disregarded and shunned and in a lurch by society, from a society, like this role of educated person, the role of mother, the role of healer, the role of protector of the earth, of poet, of creator, of hard worker, all these roles that I had played, and not realizing that I was playing them in a way, feeling that it would make me worthy of society's love and acceptance. And then around 39, I began to realize that there's nothing I could do to earn or have society's acceptance, especially in a psychotic society like we have for the most part. Or like psychotic might not be the right word, but unconscious society for the most part, disconnected, dysregulated, a lot of D words. Anyway, in my journey since that, of course, I've had this lifelong journey that I can look back and see there are many layers, but I can also see a point around 12 years. My math may be off, but at some point where I really had like I brought out into the open in my own life that I was the common factor in this repeating pattern of feeling slighted, feeling in a lurch, feeling betrayed. And so I set about changing my mindset and reprogramming myself. And I've watched other people do it, and so I expected to be a top student because I'm a pretty good learner. I learn stuff good. So I, like 5 years later, 10 years later now, I was a little bit shocked, a little mystified as to how things just seemed to be getting worse and worse and worse. And it was like the harder I tried, the harder it became, and the less I felt like I was succeeding at changing my mindset, changing my perspective, feeling less in a lurch, not betraying myself at least, Like I started to see how maybe some of the time people were betraying me, but all the time I was betraying myself, whether they were, if somebody really does betray you, it's usually because they're too wounded themselves, too hurt, or too small to act right, to put it simply. But regardless of the reason, it's not a reflection on you if someone is abusing you or betraying you in some way that is deliberate. And more often than not, though, it's not even deliberate. It's usually unconscious. Most of it comes from being wounded ourselves. I'm aware of some of the times that I've wounded people, and I'm sure there's probably a lot more that I'm unaware of. Just like there's probably things that people have said and done or not, that some of them there were hurtful to me, and maybe they cared and maybe they didn't, probably a little of both. But there's probably a whole lot of hurting that I've done. In fact, I know there is, that the other person is completely unaware of. That again, there's a lot of nuances to it, right? There's all these different shades and flavors. And I could certainly get lost in it forever and have. But here's the point to all that, I think, is ultimately it's how I'm processing it, how I'm thinking of it, the story that I'm telling myself, and how that's landing in my own body, how it's creating chemistry in my own body that matters to me. Not only is it the only thing that really matters to me, but actually it's the only thing that is of any consequence to the outside world, people I love or don't love in the moment. I like to say hate is just love underinformed. And it's been a while since I hated anyone. Been a minute, but when I do have those strong feelings of repulsiveness, repulsion, or strong, those strong feelings that one might call hate, which I see a lot of my fellow humans having lately. It comes from a place of love. It comes from loving life, wanting to love. It often comes from feeling someone or something that we love has been betrayed or slighted or left in a lurch. It's a fun word. I talked about that already yesterday, so it's not what I wanted to talk about today. I had notes, as I already mentioned, and then I looked at them. There's not that many, but as you see, I have a good challenge to stay on track. It's really what I wanted to talk about, is how all of our challenges are opportunities. And so this aspect of feeling rejected, like we've lost connection with someone that we've invested in our time or our energy into, which is more difficult to navigate than just a stranger on the internet, although that can be difficult to navigate as well. But especially when we've invested in a relationship, and probably lovers and parents and children are the most difficult ones, because those are the ones we invest the most in, right? And so, but friendship is up there too. When we've invested in a relationship, that sound is my phone. And then we find it's not there for us, it hurts. That's my buddy, my snowboarding. And I'm not dissing him at all, but he might feel slighted in the moment. Really, he doesn't, because we're good enough friends. But, if we were in a different place in our relationship, that's exactly the kind of thing that sometimes makes a person feel slighted, when it really actually has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the other person. And there's this ongoing temptation for us to self-reject, for us to leave ourselves in a lurch, for us to feel, like if we feel like someone has betrayed us, to then betray ourselves. I know very well firsthand how this is what leads to that suicidal ideation, as it's called, or feeling unworthy, feeling like maybe no one wants us around, or the world would be better off if we weren't here. But the thing is, if you're here, you fucking deserve to be here. You're worthy of being here. As am I. Even if you're not making anybody else happy right now, even yourself. Opportunity in that suffering to grow, to figure something out, to turn around and learn how to love yourself. It's often like it's really is that simple and that difficult. And I don't begrudge anyone for not doing the work, because it is difficult at times. It's painful, it's scary to turn around and face your feelings, and our culture does not teach us that it's okay to have feelings. Feelings are data, they're information about what you love, about what you desire, about which direction you should go. And if you can't feel your feelings and look at them, then you're liable to be feeling confused and unclear. And I think so many humans right now are just overwhelmed with a lack of clarity, largely due to that internal lurch that comes from feeling like if someone else said something negative or didn't say something. This morning I said good morning to someone and they didn't respond. And there's like an internal lurch in me that wants to respond with like, well, fuck you too. But the thing is, there's a myriad of reasons that person might not have said good morning. For one, my dog was barking at their dog. And for two, I probably caught them off guard a little. For three, maybe they were thinking fuck you and didn't want to say good morning. But either way, it's on me to be the person that I want to be, not let that determine the person that I become. And that's really the note that I wanted to start and end on, which is that change is always going on. And even though maybe sometimes it feels like there's more change, it's more rapid at times, maybe that's true even, but it is always going on. We're always having these moments of choice. I think we notice some more than others, but ongoingly there's a choice between letting that shit go, remembering who we want to be, and recollecting ourselves if we found ourselves feeling incoherent, feeling in that lurch. Bring yourself back. You can do it. I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And if you do it and I do it and more of us do it, we're going to be all right. Thanks for being you. Thanks for letting me be me. This is my countdown. 9 days to go, I think. I don't know, I lose track easy, but I'll see you soon. Ciao for now.